Thanks for tuning in to Written on the Edge, Season 7, Episode 48. I'm Vance Bastion here with my co-host S.A. Baz Collins, and we're really glad you're here with us. Baz didn't say hello today.
Well, you sped right through it.
On today's show, Gary Eldon Peter joins us to discuss his young adult novel that keeps winning awards. It just got one this week. We'll follow that with our review of Matteo Lane's comedy YouTube special, and the Baz and I will share what's held our attention this week. So if you like hearing updates from queer content creators, support us on Patreon, hit our merch store, follow us on YouTube. But now, on to our guest. Gary Eldon Peter's short stories have been appearing in publications, winning awards, and even performed on NPR to commemorate the 50th anniversary of the Stonewall Uprising. His debut novel continues this trend, having won the Acheven Book Prize for Young Adult Fiction, and just this week made NPR's 2022 list of young adult books we love, which is basically like their best books ever. So, kudos. Having been awarded many artist residencies, Gary continues teaching courses in writing, law, and popular culture, and the future of work and technology at the University of Minnesota. Gary, welcome to the show.
Thank you. It's great to be here.
I'm glad you made it. And I say that because, listeners, this is actually recorded on a holiday weekend, so
Yeah,
super important.
we're all in carb overload.
Yes.
A lot of turkey here.
Yes.
So, how did you get your start, though? Where did that passion come to put pen to paper and tell a story that somebody else would read or listen to?
Yeah, I think even just as a child, I was a story creator. I wouldn't say storyteller because I was pretty shy. And a lot of what I kind of did in terms of thinking about stories and, imagination was really internal for me. I was kind of anxious as a child, and I don't want to say withdrawn, but or a loner necessarily, but um, I was really, I had some of my, I think, best times as a child was in my own world and creating stories. And I was very distractible. And I was a kid in school who my report cards would say, Gary needs to do his work. Gary needs to pay attention. Because I was just, I don't know, I was really kind of off in my own sort of space a lot of the time. So I think that's kind of where it started as a child. And I really kind of retreated a lot to, just sort of creating stories in my head, creating characters, creating scenarios. And then over time, I found that I was, in terms of skills or things that I like to do, writing was the one that was always there. I was very mediocre at math and science. I really struggled with those, but I loved books. I loved reading. And I took every writing course I could all through high school. In college, I majored in journalism because I thought I might be some sort of reporter or something, journalist. And then I also had another major in social work. So I really was interested in kind of the helping professions. And
oh, cool.
And so that I kind of went that direction more than writing. Right out of college, I worked in mental health for a couple years, and then like a lot of I think people who are a couple years out of college now, I'm in a job that's sort of not going anywhere, and so I went to law school. It seems to be sort of the path for a lot of people. And law school is sort of its own thing, but it's all about writing there too. And, I was a pretty decent legal writer. So I was in that field for a while, and I wanted to write. I wasn't really doing it, but I kept thinking I would write and, more creatively. And eventually I did. I started taking classes at a great organization here in the Twin Cities called the Loft Literary Center. Which I think is pretty kind of one of the leading organizations of its kind in terms of classes and grants and readings. And so I started taking some classes there, and just very, very tentatively started writing short stories. And they were really long and really bad, but I was doing it. I was taking the classes, and it was like a whole new world. And then I just, I really wanted to be serious about it. It's like, and now I really need to do something kind of big to change my life, to make writing really part of it. So in my mid 30s, I went back to school, and I kind of dropped everything, and moved to New York, and got my MFA at Sarah Lawrence, which really changed my life. I mean, it we say that a lot, and it's kind of a cliche, but it really did. That experience really sent me in a new direction. I was writing every day. I was living out of the Midwest, and that was really great for me to kind of have that new perspective. And so then I came back, kind of resumed my normal life, went back to sort of being a lawyer in some ways, but then started teaching, and eventually got a full-time teaching gig that I have now at the University of Minnesota, and then was still writing. And it took a long time, but in 2018, my first book came out, a collection of short stories called Oranges. And then in 2022, this book, which I was going to hold up, The Complicated Calculus and Cows of Carl Paulsen.
Nice.
My YA novel came out. So went for a very, very long time without publishing. And then just within, just a few years, both books came out. And I'm definitely kind of a case study in persistence, and things take their time, and you can't control that, and you never know what's, got to keep at it. So that's really kind of my path. That's really pretty long and winding, but I eventually got to where I always hoped to be as a writer.
And now, The Complicated Calculus of Cows and Carl Paulsen is hitting best of lists. It's getting awards. So tell us about it.
Yeah, it's a YA novel. It took a long time to write. I kind of started working on it many years ago, and it was initially going to be sort of an epic, kind of multi-generational sort of James Missioner sort of,
Ooh.
Those novels that he wrote that were like, 600 pages long, and, 18 generations of characters.
Yep.
It wasn't quite going to be that, but I had this idea for it to be sort of this really big book. And the more I worked on it, and I kept, did multiple drafts, and it kind of just sort of became more and more what it ultimately was, which is a much more intimate story of kind of one character, Carl Paulsen, a teenager growing up on a kind of struggling, failing dairy farm in southern Minnesota, and kind of a sort of a real pivotal sort of school semester in his life. So that, just all that kind of work on it, eventually I think you kind of have to go through all that to kind of find the story, and I did. As far as why a YA novel, that kind of happened by accident, really. I didn't really intend to write a YA novel. But as I kind of saw more and more what it was really going to be, and kind of the scope of it, and the voice of the character, it's like, I thought, I think this, I read a fair number of YA novels just to kind of try to understand the genre. And I thought this seems like where I'm going with this. This seems like what it might be.
Okay.
And I had some other folks read it too and say, does this feel like YA to you? And they said, yeah, it kind of does. I mean, it's, doesn't mean adults couldn't read it and get a lot out of it, but it does have that element to it.
So is Carl out at the beginning of the story? Is coming out part of his story?
You know, it is and it isn't. One of my goals for the story and that character was I purposely didn't want a character who was going through kind of am I or am I not kind of scenario. Those can be great stories and, you know, certainly worthy stories to be told in a YA book. But what I really wanted him to understand himself pretty well and know who he is and feel comfortable with who he is. And so the issue for him was more in the novel is more, how do I know who I am and all of that, but how do I fit into my world? And how do others see me? And how, you know, how would their knowledge of me impact our relationships, you know, in terms of school, in terms of family? So, you know, I guess he's come out to himself, you know, that
Sure.
kind of expression, but
Sure.
I think he's just like, you know, am I ready to sort of tell the world who I am? And what might be the, you know, the consequences of that, or, you know, what will happen?
Sure.
And then he meets someone. He meets another kind of the new kid in town, who he really instantly is sort of smitten with, and then that sort of adds a whole additional kind of element to the story. And also kind of another plot line in the story is just living on this farm that's not doing well, and you know, so he and his father are trying to figure out what they're going to do and how they keep it going. Do they keep it going? It's sort of a family legacy, and if they kind of bail on it, what does that mean for, you know, that? And so that's part of the story as well. So, so
Was that sort of how you approached writing a rural setting without making it feel cliche?
yeah, I think it's easy to um to think of rural life. I mean, and I didn't grow up on a farm, but I have kind of next generation relatives who did.
I did, yeah.
So, oh, well, you can, if you read the book, you can tell me all the dairy things I missed or screwed up on. But I had spent a lot of time on farms. I mean, as my grandparents had a farm, cousins, and, you know, I was a kind of a guest, you know, farm boy. I would, you know, just sort of hang out, and it was fun, and we'd ride the pony, and, you know, but, uh, you know, I didn't quite have that same level of understanding of what it was like to run one or have it be your living. But I think what I wanted to do was, I think it would be easy to just, you know, have that be kind of a backdrop, and it's like, yeah, it's just their life and they do okay at it. And to me, that, you know, to have sort of that, you know, oh, rural life is so wonderful and you're living off the land. And to me, that could feel cliche. So I thought, well, what if it was a small farm? What if it was kind of, you know, economically distressed?
Well, and that's the current situation most farmers are facing, especially small farms. They're really facing financial hardship right now.
Yeah, yeah, and I think that that's just more was a more realistic sort of way to portray it, and it gave me more to kind of work with in terms of the story. Um, and yeah, so and so that was really important, I think, to have that sort of be an additional kind of tension
Right.
point in the story.
Okay. How has it done in this era of don't say gay? I mean, it's a
Mm-hmm.
YA novel. That's like what society's coming for.
Yeah, you know, I don't really know. I wonder about that a lot. And yeah, this whole thing about, you know, don't say gay and book banning and all that is just, it's just pretty stunning to me.
Yeah, here we
Because
are again.
yeah, I mean, and I came of age in the late 70s, early 80s. And you know, this is kind of goes even further back than that in some
Yeah.
ways. I mean, I remember when you know, Anita Bryant and the pie and everything. I don't know if
Oh
people
yeah.
remember that, but you know, those kinds of struggles and battles. And So it's, yeah, to be in this place, I really can't quite believe it sometimes. And I remember, in, I think, was it 2015 when marriage equality became a reality, I was like, I can't believe this happened so fast, right? This was something that was just kind of a dream.
We never thought in our lifetime. Yeah.
No, I didn't think I would ever see it. And I'm sort of having a similar reaction, but kind of from the other direction with this say gay thing, because it's like, I can't believe we're back here at this place. It's sort of the same level of
just the fact that we have groomers, just the fact that groomer is back in, it's like, what?
Yeah.
I mean, did you guys go back to this? Well, that's where they want to take us, is back to the 50s. So,
right.
Yeah. But I guess as far as the book is concerned, I wonder about that. It's pretty, all you would have to do is read the back cover and the synopsis, and it's like, yep, this is ripe for banning, maybe. But I don't know. I don't know if it's, as far as I know, that hasn't happened, but I kind of thinking maybe it could happen.
Well, I mean, now that you hit NPR's YA Books We Love list, it's going to be in the crosshairs. People are noticing it.
Yep.
Yeah, and it'll be interesting to see. And also, because I don't know how many other writers do this, but I sort of am always kind of obsessively Googling myself to see where the book is, if it's, well, how many ratings does it have on Goodreads now, or where, just to see where it's showing up. And and you can see libraries that have the book. And I think the last time I checked, I think there's, including some like in New Zealand and Australia and a few international places, it's in a lot of libraries. Like, I think close to 80 libraries are stocking it, and some in southern states. I don't want to sort of assume that's where it would be problematic, but I mean, I think it could happen anywhere, actually. But so, yeah, I don't know. We'll see. And I think part of me is like, oh, boy, if it got banned, that would really bring some attention to it? And
there's no bad press.
Yeah. Would it, what would that do for sales? And I think, oh, that isn't.
And think of it, you'll be a member of one of the best clubs in the world.
That's true. That's true. Yeah.
And as a friend of mine always said, whenever they have book burnings and stuff like that, you just kind of go, yeah, but you had to buy the book to burn it. So I still made the coin.
Yeah. Yeah, and I don't know if any, if that's been shown that it really helps your sales or not, or who knows.
We've had one guest to whom that happened, and he said yes, that helped his sales.
Wow.
Tremendously.
Yeah. So it's very troubling. And I don't want to say it's something you hope for, but it's I guess if there's got to be some upside to it, maybe that, I suppose that would be it,
but the only thing that I can see that we have going for us is that we've never been at a point in history like we are now, where the youth are so they just think, why are these adults having these conversations? We're beyond this. We're already on to what else we're doing in our lives, and it just, I think that's where our hope needs to be. And it's why we continue to fight, is so the next generations have a better chance than we had. But I think the youth really are, I mean, they showed up at the polls and did their thing this year like they've never done before. So I think we have a chance really to, I think this is one of the last dying breaths of this kind of bullshit. And I know we've said that before, but this one feels really, really prevalent. You have all the things going on in Russia now. You have all of this stuff, just seems like a last gasp, and I think with the young being more politically motivated, they're being much more vocal. I think that's where our hope has to lie, is that we have kids that aren't willing to just give up the ghost and
absolutely.
lie down.
Right.
You know?
And I think about my own sort of coming out, and I remember really clearly going to the library to check out like a boy's own story, Edmund White, and how formative that book was, and some other books as well. And I was like, oh, I'm a little uneasy checking out this book, but I got past that pretty quickly. But I just think about, what if that book hadn't been there, or what if, and it's thinking those books like that are so much part of our literary history, could be seen as unsuitable, and it's just mind blowing. And so maybe your book gets banned, it gets some attention, but then it's not there, right? And I think about as when I was a teenager and kind of struggling to find a book like my book, would have helped me, right? And you hope that helps someone else. And there's that expression that you write the book that you wished someone else had written, or that you wished had been there. Or that someone else had written, and that kind of is that same idea, that you write the book that you want to see for other people. That
Plus, I think we also get caught up in U.S. politics and how it affects these books, but yet, there are places, I've gotten emails from people for my book from middle of Africa, and I keep, which astounds me that you realize you touch people that are truly in oppressive situations, and yet your book made it there somehow.
And that's like the thing that you hope for. It doesn't happen really often, but I mean, with my first book, I did get some emails just through my website from readers who said, I really appreciated that you wrote this book, or that I felt like you told my story. It's like, wow, that really kind of takes your breath away. And that's why you do it. You hope it gets read, you hope it sells, you hope it gets made into a movie. I mean, not likely, but you kind of always can hope. But
you never know.
You
never know. But that's what it's all about. And if the books aren't there, then that's definitely something that is alarming.
Is there anything else you want folks to know about the complicated calculus of cows of Carl Paulsen?
No, I don't think so. I think, like I said, I think I think adults can read young adult novels and really get something out of them. So I hope that the audience is encompasses that. One thing I would say I've gotten some good feedback on is it's a pretty short novel. It's kind of a cross between a novel and a novella. It's kind of too long to be a novella, but a little short for a novel, but it still kind of counts as a novel. And one thing I've read about just in terms of YA books is librarians talking about trying to get kids to read and saying, you don't have to have a YA book that's 500 pages long. Right. There's room for shorter books that can be meaningful. And if with shorter books, then maybe you're getting more kids to read, and it's less intimidating if it's, a book that's, 200 pages or kind of in that ballpark. So, so that makes me, because as I was writing it, I was thinking, boy, this is, I'm really kind of moving along here, and the story's really getting pretty, it's a pretty compressed sort of time frame. But it seems to work, and I was concerned about that, but people who have read the book and some of the reviews I've gotten have said, the compactness of it is really a plus. So, so for any YA readers, reluctant YA readers who maybe aren't up for a, 600 pager, this might be for them. It's a pretty quick read.
Nice.
So,
Excellent. So what's up next for you?
Well, as far as writing goes, I don't really have a specific kind of book in the works. I'm trying to go back and write write more short stories. I would love to do another collection of stories. I'd love to write more novels. I don't really have any specific ideas for it in mind. One thing I've been doing more of lately is writing essays, and part of that has been to promote the book, to kind of, that seems to be a way to kind of get your name out there, is to write, essays about the book or about some craft element, or something related to it. And I've really enjoyed doing that. I've written, I published an essay in the Gay and Lesbian Review not too long ago, which was about sort of my brief acting career as an adolescent. So I did that, and I've written an essay for School Library Journal about the rural setting of the novel and how that is important to it. And I also have an essay just out in an anthology called Unbound, which is a collection of essays about the idea of place and home. Oh, cool. And so I wrote an essay for that about just my whole experience of moving to, living in New York as a Midwesterner, and kind of adjusting to that, and all about kind of the movie Fargo, which was sort of big when I was living out there, and people were going crazy for the movie, and so I kind of built the essay around that. So I like writing essays. I not something I would ever have thought I would do a lot of, but I've enjoyed writing them, so maybe more to come.
I say that sounds like a good intersection of your creativity and journalism backgrounds.
Yeah.
Like
that's probably why it appeals.
All those skills together in one.
Yeah, I think so. And I think sometimes, as a fiction writer, obviously you're always drawing from life and your own experience, and that's hard to do sometimes. And sometimes it's just easier to just tell the truth, right? And just, hear and just own your own experience and write about that. And that's been kind of just really nice to do. And nice. And just something about the process of kind of creating an essay, or structuring it and building it. And the ones I've done have had pretty set limits. It's like you have 1,000 words, and I like that. I like it's kind of a puzzle. How am I going to fit this kind of whole thing, or this arc of whatever, into that space? And,
nice.
So maybe more essays for sure.
Nice. So which social site is best for people to follow you to get the updates on what you're working on?
Well, I'm on the usual stuff. I'm Facebook and Instagram. I'm on Twitter. I don't tweet a lot. I mean, if something happens or I have something to promote, I'll tweet it, but I don't.
Who knows if it'll be around next week?
Yeah. It's, I don't know. That's been.
That may not be a bad thing.
Yeah. This kind of almost death watch with Twitter. It's like, it's gonna go away in an hour,
It's like we keep hearing the beeps of its heartbeat, but they're getting fewer and far between.
Yeah. And so Instagram, Facebook, sort of Twitter. I have I also have a website, which I
remember those. No.
Yeah. Which is GaryEldonPeter.com. And there I have links to, reviews, information about books, how to order them. I have a kind of a events calendar that I, for things that I'm doing.
Excellent.
Try to keep it updated. So
nice. All right. Any final words of wisdom?
No, I don't think so. This has been really fun. I've really enjoyed it, and these are such great questions that you have, and it's been great to be able to talk about the book. And
well, it's not a one-time thing, you write something else and you want to come talk about it. Just knock on our door.
Yeah, incentive, right?
Mm-hmm. Right, there you go.
Get something else going.
Right. All right, folks, we'd like to extend a huge thank you to Gary Eldon Peter for joining us. Gary, thank you so much.
Oh, thank you. It's been wonderful.
Our pleasure. We at Written on the Edge are proud to introduce you to new media by queer content creators, so if you enjoy learning about these artists, please like and subscribe to get the alerts for new episodes. Now, on to our review.
Some good show.
You were about to say.
I'm glad you stayed on to this video for us to continue with the show. See how good this works? Such great communication.
Mm-hmm. All I was going to say is, yay, more YA novels in the world. We desperately need them.
Yes.
And our review today is a bit bonkers because it's a part of a comedy skit. It feels like the half hour before or after an actual comedy skit, but the camera was rolling and it ended up being really good. So Matteo Lane was like, let's use that.
Yeah. I think we're doing a Matteo Lane's advice special, which is on YouTube. So it's free. Anybody can go watch it. Obviously, he'll make money off of the views. So that's how he's going to get the revenue for it. But in a way, I kind of really loved it because there's two things that Matteo does really well. The man knows how to riff. To be honest, a lot of gays have this ability because we're always having our defense mechanism running 24/7. So we kind of hone our skills on being very quick-witted. But I think this is one of the strengths that Matteo has, where he can take anything thrown at him and then turn it around into something funny and throw it at the wall and it will stick. The other thing I love about it is that he normalizes gay very quickly in his spiel when he starts his little routines. He gets everybody. I just saw a short that I just was dying. He said, Christmas is the gayest season of the year because it's just, we take trees who only have one job to provide clean air for us. We chop them down or rip them out of the forest. Then we dress them up as drag queens and then we throw them away. He makes a point.
He does. And because we are keeping this clean for our author, we're not going to go into the language used in some of the jokes, but he doesn't hold back. He's very honest about New York's sex scene, especially for gays. And it was kind of refreshing, actually.
Yeah. And I love the fact that he also played with culture and language. And the fact that the very first, what it is, the premise is that he polls the audience for what do they want to talk about. They throw something out at him and a situation, and he tries to solve it in a very comedic way.
Comedy / advice column.
Yeah.
It's only he
agony gay uncle, that's kind of what it is. But what I loved was that the fact that
Carlos,
one of the first ones that get thrown out is Carlos, this guy. And the reason why the name is hysterical is because the reveal of his name comes at a point in the conversation where it just makes everything that much more funny.
That whole advice question was an onion peel that just kept unfolding. And every layer, Matteo had to stop and be like, let me think about this. Worth it. Worth it.
Yes. And the fact that Matteo also has a background in singing opera and stuff. He's been on the stage, so he's a classically trained singer. And to end the show the way he did, going to do a performance and set up the mic to pull a stunt that was just epic. I mean, the whole thing, if it was a riff, if it was like, as you say, a kind of the cameras are rolling, let's get this. I just thought it was brilliant because it had that pre-show kind of feel, that warm up of an audience, but yet it went completely off the rails in a really, really spectacularly funny way. We're going to do a little bit different when we get to the rating part, which we're approaching now, unless you have something else to add.
Nope, go for it.
We highly recommend you people watch it. It's really hysterical. It's very funny. But I'm just going to say I'm going to give it a 5 because I love Matteo. He can do no wrong. I even watch. I guess there's a new video he's just posted like within the last couple of hours where he tries to be a bartender, and it's supposed to be really hysterical. I haven't watched it yet, but just the setup looked really freaking funny. So yeah, he's doing a whole series of Matteo Lane tries.
Yeah.
And so he tries to do something that's completely out of his comfort zone and see how it turns out. Nice. So I'm just going to say I give it a 5 because it's gay, quippish, off the fly, off the cuff riffing that, just totally exemplifies what the gay community does best when it comes to comedy.
Yep. I also gave it a 5 because for me, it's just a nice little brain cleanser. It was funny and light and something you could watch before bed and just go to bed smiling. Perfect.
Yeah. And I love the fact that he had a pianist there who helped along with some of the, just anyways. Yep. We highly recommend you watch it. It's free. Go watch it on YouTube. Just find Matteo Lane's YouTube channel. I think it's at Matteo Lane. Is the handle, so you can get to his channel by that. Now handles are a thing on YouTube, so you can find people. And in that vein, we are at Rope Podcast. So to find us, you no longer need to know some cryptic algorithmic
no more arcane sorcery.
Yep. We're down to now. You just do is youtube.com/@Rope Podcast, and you will find our channel. So big shout out for that as well. So let's move on to what are we on about? What are you on about?
2 things. 1, YouTube finally giving everybody handles. How many years later? I'm like, come on. Because other socials have been allowing you to customize your handles for a very long time. And thing 2, the more important, what am I on about? Wednesday on Netflix. Oh my God, I was not prepared to love that show quite so much. We sat down Thanksgiving night after all the family drama and chaos. We're like, let's just watch 1 episode, see how it goes, and then we'll go to bed. 3 episodes later, I have turned to my husband and said, she's my spirit animal.
What's this?
You don't know Wednesday?
Oh, the show. Oh, okay.
Yeah, so
talking about Wednesday.
Wednesday Addams of the Addams Family got her own show. Yeah. Tim Burton is at the helm, but Go and Millar, who have a long history of keeping series going, are also there. So they know how to tell a story. You got Tim Burton's eye on everything. And it's so beautifully well done. I have not loved a teenage high school show this much, I think, in the history of ever. And everything about it is wrong. Do not watch it with your children. In episode 1, she gets pulled out of public school and sent to her mom's private school, the one her mom Morticia had attended, because some bullies were harassing her brother, so she dumped piranhas in their swim practice pool, and one boy lost a testicle. That's how the show kicks off. Before the credits even roll, she's there, 2 bags of piranhas, dropping them in the pool. Everything about it is wrong, and that's what makes everything about it right.
Well, that's Addams Family. I mean, come on.
Exactly. And it got back to a lot of the original, comic book.
Dark, comedy,
Dark comedy. The actress who is playing her, though, oh my God, is walking that line between teenage girl trying to figure herself out and emotionless serial killer so well.
Oh, yeah.
So well. But you also, middle of the series, because we actually have finished the whole season. Middle of the series, you get why young Wednesday stopped having emotions. And it's important. Yeah.
Okay.
So I love it.
I'll definitely check it out.
I wish there was more. For all of us here in the queer audience, they did some really neat things with the world. Like outcasts are a known thing. So the Addams Family just being weird, creepy, and having sort of a Morticia with her seances and stuff. But there are werewolves. There are Gorgons who actually wear stocking caps to keep their snakes hidden because the snakes are what turn people to stone. There are shapeshifters. There are all of these beings called outcasts. The world at large knows about them. There's some segregation going on. There's certainly some hatred between the normals and the outcasts. And so anyone who's ever felt even the slightest bit queer will identify with that, because the main characters of the show are outsiders. They're outsiders trying to live in a small town at a school that was set aside for them. It's kind of ghettoization, but it's also for their protection, and all of those weird things that we have to deal with that straight people don't think about are kind of there. So there's a lot of reason to love this show.
Excellent. I'll definitely have to check it out.
Worth it.
So what am I on about? I have one update to a previous episode that we recorded that I found great comfort in, and now only to find out it was a complete scam. So I kind of want to give an update on it. I was loving all of these sea turtle rescues with barnacles and stuff.
Yeah.
Turns out I found a guy who really is a turtle expert who has a channel about turtles. And he has been launching a very, very vocal campaign to have these channels taken down. What has happened is there was one that was a sea turtle that somebody rescued and took barnacles off, and it got lots of views. And a lot of YouTubers went, haha, I can do this. So what they were doing were taking freshwater turtles and then putting them on the end of an ocean or whatever, and then picking them up. And the items that were the barnacles and stuff, they were glued on. And so when they were taking them off, it was actually harming the turtle because they have nerves in those shell platelets. And so it's turned into quite a tragedy. So what I found one thought was so warming and soothing that people were doing good things turned out to be a big money scam so that they could rescue these sea turtles, quote unquote, and they were actually freshwater turtles that were being harmed by putting them in seawater to begin with, let alone hot gluing shit to them, only to rip it off. So don't comment on those. Don't watch them. If anything, report the channel that is showing them, because we need to get this stuff taken down on YouTube. So I do apologize for making a big deal of it back in the day, but I did not know that they were freshwater turtles. There is a guy called the Turtle Guy. I think that's his name. I'll put the link down below for his channel, and he explains all. And so definitely should check it out and do what you can to report these channels, because they get millions of views, which is bank on YouTube. So just a note out about that. The other things that I'm on about, I saw a wonderful, wonderful biography on a lighter note. I saw a wonderful, wonderful biography film on the singer Dionne Warwick, Auntie Dionne. And she had quite the amazing life. She was at the forefront for queers when nobody else was during the 80s. She actually got Reagan to say AIDS. And she tells the story in her biography. So when we went for years without the administration doing anything for our community, it was Auntie Dionne who pushed the issue, and she was warned that do not force the president, blah, blah, blah. Don't put him in that position, blah, blah, blah. And that's exactly what she did. So she's been out there for us. Elton John is on the documentary, Gloria Estefan, Carlos Santana, Snoop Dogg. She was just out there doing stuff that was truly amazing. And yet the thing she's remembered for is the Psychic Network, which was something that she did as a gig, a paid gig. And it's the thing that everybody remembers about her, but they don't realize how much of a barrier breaker and how much of an activist she was. In fact, when the whole thug thing happened in rap in the 90s, she called Snoop Dogg, I think it was Dr. Dre, and it was Tupac, to come to her house. And because
she was such a big name in the Black community. It was like being summoned by the Queen of England. And so she said, I want you guys at my house at 7 a.m. sharp. And they Snoop Dogg tells the story. He goes, we were there at 6:52. So we rang the bell at 7 o'clock, like we were told. She goes, so she was very gracious. She brought us in. She provided drinks and donuts and had us sit down. And we sat down in her sitting room. And then she looked square at us and said, all right, y'all need to call me a bitch to my face, because they were using bitches and blah, blah, blah. And they just like looked at each other like, what, huh, what? She said, yeah, don't be using these terms anymore. Okay, we're done. And she hauled him out on the carpet, and girl, she bitch slapped the rest of those boys. And even Snoop Dogg says, we thought we were all thugs and badasses. We got checked. We got checked by Dion. And he said, if you notice the tone of the way we addressed women in rapping rapidly changed after that meeting, because word got out that Dion was not taking any of this stuff. So good. Very, very enlightening. She does a whole segment on the AIDS epidemic and what she did to bring the public eye on it, and that to help dispel the whole kind of, I forget, I'm at loss for words, but the stigma, that's the word I'm looking for, the stigma that was associated with it. She worked really hard to dispel that. So yay to Auntie Dion. The other thing I'm on about is the shooter's father for Club Q. The whole damn thing. They finally cornered his ass. And he not only acknowledged that he showed this guy how to do the stuff that he did, but then when they said he shot up in a gay club, he said, oh, well, at least he's not gay. That was the response. I mean, it's like, what the holy fuck? So fuck that guy. The other thing I am on about is, I'm sorry, my list is a little long, is that the NFL Vikings tried to do something really kind of cool. They were doing a kind of a salute to people in the military, trying to acknowledge their service for the country, yada, yada, yada. And by doing this, they said, hey, post a picture of someone from the military that you look up to. We'll put them on our Twitter channel. And so some gay guy thought it would be funny to post a picture of a porn star in a military outfit and called him their cousin Joe. And it was the gay porn star Johnny Sins. But he's in a military garb. So how would you know unless you did a image search? So I thought that was kind of funny. Kudos to the Vikings for acknowledging our sex workers. And then the last thing I'm on about is that there's a great video, and I forget the guy's name. His name was Adam something, but he had a short-lived series on, I think it was on Bravo. It was about where he would take apart things that, that were people had misconceptions about, and he would like break it down. Well, anyways, he did. I'll put the link down below. He did a video on how people need to understand tech giants are not geniuses. They are opportunists, and they game the system to gain the level. I mean, Mark Zuckerberg, he finagled everything to get the Winklevosses, who were really part of the whole thing, so he could get Facebook, and then he used the funds of Facebook to start buying every competition under the sun. The man is not a genius. He just spent $36 billion on this fucking metaverse that no one wants to be in, that he's now making his employees go in and be in the environment so that it looks like there are people there. This is how stupid these people are. Elon Musk, burning Twitter down to the ground but he's such a technical genius. No, he's not. No, he's not. He had help. He was born into a rich family. And then he also did work with Peter Thiel. And we all know who Peter Thiel is in the queer community, asswipe of the gay community, and who's nothing but an opportunist himself. So people need to start realizing these tech giants are not geniuses. They are opportunists, period. And we need to stop listening to them when it comes to where society needs to go and decision making that needs to happen. And Congress better figure out a way to step up and start checking these guys. So that's what I'm on about this week. Who won your week?
My husband. Today's his
Oh,
birthday.
yay.
We are recording this on his actual birthday.
Yay. Happy birthday, Jason.
And yes, he does not want me to say his age on the air, so all I can say is he qualifies for an AARP card.
Well, you know what, child? I was receiving AARP shit when I was 34. So, you know, those people are hitting you hard, no matter what age you are. They're just trying to grab you. They just want a warm body. So you tell your husband, for me, that the AARP shit, those people are just out for warm blood. They don't care how old you really are. Okay, well, happy birthday. All right, so my winner of the week is actually, I just saw this. I'll put the link for the channel down below. There is a YouTuber who is monitoring changes in the Ukraine-Russian war, but from what is being supplied to Ukraine and how beneficial it can be and what its uses and applications can be. I just saw a video literally just before we started recording where he did one called where it's old rockets that we are actually targeting for disposal that, and I think it's Raytheon and Boeing, but I'll put the link down below for the YouTube channel that talks about it. It's not a very long video. It's only like 4 minutes long. But what these tech companies have come up with is they figured out, rather than just destroying these older missile warheads, they found a way to adapt them to put them on standard like HIMARS rockets or whatever, and they can either be attached to a plane or they can be attached to a land device like the HIMARS. And it shoots it out, and then it drops this adapted warhead onto a glider that can go 130 kilometers out, which is farther than they've ever gone before. And because they're gliding and they're laser targeted, they get the thrust from the rocket that takes off to send it off. They actually are highly accurate, highly volatile. So when they hit, they really cause a lot of damage. And they have a much further range than the Ukrainians have ever had. And so these weapons manufacturers have said, look, rather than just dispose of these, because we're just throwing them away, they're basically, just blowing them up and getting rid of them. They said, why don't we do this small, simple, cheap modification and then give all of them to Ukraine? If we're going to destroy them anyways, you might as well give them and make them of some use. So they win my week this week because they just thought out of the box and said, rather than destroy a bunch of old ammunition that's still usable, but we just won't have any need for it, let's give it to Ukraine and we'll just make this small adaptation that allows them to not only use those old warheads, but also be able to use them at greater distances than ever before. So the Kersh Bridge and all of that comes back into play again.
Wow.
So that's who won my week.
Wow. Impressive. Any final words of wisdom?
Dig deeper. Don't just take things at face value. Mm-hmm. Look deeper, do the work, because as with the sea turtles, there was a lot of YouTubers who have been making a lot of bank on another scam going on called Entitled. In something titles, it was because it's been taken off now, but they were paying YouTubers a ton of money to promote established titles. That's what it was. Where they would spend a certain amount of money and they would get a square foot plot of land in Scotland and they could call themselves a lady or a lord. So it's all this, and that turned into a huge scandal. So dig deeper. Don't just take things on face value. We all know that a lot of, crap gets thrown around on the air. So do the homework before you commit your dollars and your support behind it.
All right. Folks, Written on the Edge is produced by Rogue Ravens Media. For our disclaimers, links to social media, our listen stations, or to sign up as a guest, visit www.rotepodcast.com. If you enjoy learning about new artists, please like and subscribe so you get the alerts for new episodes. Join us on the YouTube. We have an @ handle now. Buy the merchandise, sign up for Patreon, do all the stuff you can do, anything you can do, tiny little bits you can do just to keep our lights on, and tune in next week for your Queer Media Fix.
Closing time. The bums rush in melody, dear.